Imagine this. You stand before a mirror in a dimly lit room, your reflection half shrouded in shadow. The surface glass feels cold beneath your fingertips, and yet the figure staring back at you radiates warmth, allure that pulses from within, as if the very air around you bends to your presence. You sense something ancient and unspoken stirring beneath your skin, a silent magnetism that reaches out, drawing unseen forces toward you. What if I told you that this isn't vanity, but a doorway one that leads into the hidden architectures of the psyche? You've learned to measure attractiveness in smiles, glances, the symmetry of cheek. You've studied grooming, posture, the power of a well-timed laugh. Yet, despite every self-help platitude about confidence and style, you felt an uneasy truth. Every mirror lies. Beneath the polished countenance, some far deeper source of charisma is shaping the way the world sees you. What ghosts and gods have conspired to carve the contours of your allure? Think of beauty as a currency, exchanged in furtive glances at parties, in the silent equations of the boardroom, in the undercurrents of desire. You spend it, invest it, sometimes hoard it, yet never fully know its origin. It could feel like luck, genetics, the random roll of ancestral dice, but what if this currency is minted by something far more profound? Here lies the paradox. You crave to be seen, to be valued, and yet the very thing that makes you visible may lie beyond your conscious grasp. How can you harness a force you cannot name? You might blame your upbringing, chalk it up to your zodiac sign, or credit a self-esteem workshop you attended last year. Still, when you catch yourself alone, you feel a trembling question echo in your chest. Who am I, really, when every mask falls away? And what unseen architect has been building your attractiveness all along? Pause and listen to that tremor. It's the threshold of Jung's insight. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, that unknown companion mystically woven into the fabric of the self. He spoke of anima and animus, archetypes rising from the collective unconscious like submerged leviathans. Could it be that your attractiveness is not merely a matter of surface appeal, but a resonance with these primal patterns, pre-verbal forces that dwell under the surface of your mind? Consider for a moment the flicker of recognition you see in another's eyes when you enter a room, a flash where their own unacknowledged desires or fears ignite at your presence. Is that attraction, or is it something more elusive, a projection of their hidden longing, a mirror reflecting the parts of themselves they have yet to accept? If beauty is in the eye of the beholder, what happens when that eye is clouded by unconscious yearning? You might feel a shiver at the thought that your greatest charm could be the unconscious projections of everyone around you, that the laughter you elicit, the warmth you exude, might in fact be a stage set upon which others project their inner dramas. Yet this realization does not diminish your allure, it deepens it. It hints that your attractiveness, far from being a mere accident of genetics, is tethered to a vast, hidden realm of shared symbols and psychic currents. So you stand at the edge of a precipice. The world rewards you for your magnetism, yet you've never truly understood its source. Could this be a cosmic joke your entire life, guided by forces you call by no name? When you smile, is it merely good manners, or are you echoing an archetype so old that it predates history? And when you frown, are you repelling not just with the downturn of your lips, but with the recoil of some primordial pattern disrupted? Here, in this unsettled moment, you face the great question that'll guide us onward. What lies behind your attractiveness? Not merely the brushstrokes of biology or culture, but the hidden machinery of the psyche that sculpts your variation. A question that, once asked, cannot be unheard of. Question that demands you follow its echo down into the subterranean halls of your own soul. And yet, do you dare to descend, to confront the ghosts that lend color to your magnetism, and perhaps find that the illusion of control was never yours to claim? The answers lie waiting, buried beneath layers of expectation, persona, and unspoken myth. In our next journey, we will step beyond the mirror's deceptive clarity and into the hidden realm, where raw, psychic forces weave the tapestry of your allure. But for now, hold your breath at the threshold, and let the weight of the question press upon you. What truly makes you impossible to ignore? You step away from the mirror's edge, heart pounding, and feel the room shift around you. The weight of that question, what truly makes you impossible to ignore, settles like dust in your lungs. You realize that behind every glance cast your way, behind every ripple of desire or envy, lies a hidden force you've barely begun to understand. This force is not a whim of genetics or a trick of lighting. It is woven into the very architecture of your psyche, seeded by centuries of thought and emotion, shaped by philosophical tremors and psychological earthquakes. You have always sensed the pull of something beneath your surface, an undercurrent tugging at your choices, your moods, your interactions, yet you dismissed it as mere mood swings, or the aftermath of a tossed salad of upbringing and random chance. Now, as you stand with that uneasy question echoing in your chest, you sense a more profound dilemma. The magnets that draw people toward you are not wholly your own making. They are the relics of archetypes, the shadows of ideas, and the rumblings of collective longings. They live in the cracks of your conscious mind, shaping you in ways you cannot name. Carl Jung called these forces the collective vast reservoir of images and motifs that belong not to any single life but to all of human history. In that unseen realm dwell the anima and animus, the mother, the sage, the trickster, and countless other archetypal figures that pulse beneath the surface of every individual. When you laugh in a certain way, when your eyes widen at the right moment, you awaken an echo of some primordial myth. Perhaps the nurturing mother, perhaps the liberated wanderer, so that the person across the table sees in you the embodiment of their own unspoken dreams. The attractiveness you wield is, in part, a resonance with these hidden images, an unbidden communion with images older than you are. But why has this unconscious resonance become something we seldom question? Enter Friedrich Nietzsche, who saw in every human act a will to power drive, not just for dominance but for affirmation of one's existence. Nietzsche would say that your attractiveness is a kind of power, a subtle sovereignty over the perceptions of others. It demands recognition, and to feed it you must perform, consciously or not, certain gestures and postures that echo the triumphs of the heroic figures he admired. Yet if this will to power hides behind your smile, then your magnetism also conceals a deeper hunger. The hunger to assert yourself against the abyss of meaninglessness. Arthur Schopenhauer looked at desire and found it insatiable and cruel. He claimed that attraction is but a mask for the species' will, the unconscious drive to perpetuate itself, heedless of individual suffering. From this angle, your allure is a cruel trick. You draw others in, promising fulfillment and connection, only to leave them grasping at phantoms. Attraction emerges not from your conscious intent, but from the archaic will that thrums beneath every conscious thought. How many moments of connection have ended in disillusionment because the deeper will was never satisfied? Aldous Huxley warned you of the dangers of a society intoxicated by surface impressions, where depth is surrendered for spectacle. In a world of screens and curated identities, the unconscious machinery of attraction becomes a commodity, a brand you polish and project. Yet the deeper you dive into that performance, the more distant you drift from your core. Huxley's dystopia is not a far-off nightmare but your daily commute. You slip into well-rehearsed personas to awaken desires in others, trading authenticity for approval, unaware that with every echo of applause you drown a little more of your genuine self. Jean-Paul Sartre observed that the other is both mirror and jailer. The moment someone sees you, you become an object, a reflection of their gaze. Your attractiveness, then, is entangled with the gaze of others. It is not wholly your property but a shared creation. In that authorship lies your blind spot. You shape your self-image to match the images others project back at you. The chin you lift, the sigh you offer, becomes part of their narrative, a script you find yourself reciting until you forget who wrote the lines. Viktor Frankl, who found meaning even in the abyss of a concentration camp, might tell you that this hidden problem, this unconscious play of archetypes, wills, and gazes can become a prison only if you allow it. In his view, meaning arises from freedom within constraints. You are free to choose how you respond to these invisible currents. Yet before you can choose, you must first see the forces that have been guiding your steps, like unseen strings, and so the hidden problem reveals itself. Beneath the skin of your daily operations of charm and magnetism lies an intricate network of drives and images that most of us never name. Your attractiveness is neither wholly yours nor wholly theirs. It is the outcome of a triangular dance between your conscious self, the collective unconscious, and the gazes of others. This dance sets the beat of your relationships, your self-esteem, your sense of purpose. It pulses through every compliment you receive, every fleeting glance, every heart that skips to meet yours. Imagine now, standing before that same mirror, but this time with your mind. SI trained on what swims beneath the glass, shifting shapes of archetypes, shadows of unexamined desires, and the gleaming eyes of every observer who ever found something magnetic in you. To remain unaware of this hidden force is to be a marionette, dancing to a tune you cannot hear. To see it, however, is to hold the scissors that can cut the strings, but awareness alone is not enough. Once you glimpse these psychological and philosophical root swans, you recognize the roles you play and the scripts you follow. You confront a new tension, the loss of innocence, the shattering of comforting illusions. For if your attractiveness is a conjured echo of ancient patterns, then who are you when those echoes fade? Are you left with a raw, unadorned self, vulnerable and unproven? Or can you step into the void and learn to shape new images, new patterns that reflect the fullness of your being? The hidden problem lies not only in the darkness beneath your skin, but in the fear of stepping into the light. It is easier to cling to the roles that have earned you admiration than to face the abyss of self-creation. Yet within that abyss lies the possibility of liberation and, paradoxically, a deeper, more authentic attractiveness. The next step is the bold question. What if you could learn to see these unseen forces, to meet them with awareness, and to rewrite their influence on your life? That journey promises both peril and power. You have glimpsed the hidden machinery. Now, dare to trace its gears and levers to their origin. You feel the echoes of those archetypal rhythms rippling through your life. But have you noticed the way they've seeped into the very fabric of your reality so subtly that you no longer recognize the trap? Walk with me into the hidden theater of your mind, where the unseen consequences of your attractiveness play out in scenes both intimate and grand, reshaping your sense of self and the world around you. Consider the moment you walk into a crowded cafe. You choose the table by the window, smoothing the chair cushion just so. A barista offers you a second glance, imperceptible shift in tone. You feel buoyed. That rush is not merely pleasure. It is the release of dopamine in your brain, wiring you to seek ever more of these confirming cues. Neurologically, you re-caught in a feedback loop. Every look that affirms your charm deepens the synaptic pathways that anchor your identity to external validation. Unseen rewards reinforce you, sculpting your behavior like a sculptor molding clay. What began as a simple smile now underpins your sense of worth. Yet dopamine is not the only neurotransmitter at work. Oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone, surges when you elicit trust and admiration. You feel connected, as if the other person has opened a door in their psyche just for you. But oxytocin's magic is a double-edged sword. It binds you to roles you play, to the persona that elicits these chemical floods. You begin to crave specific interactions that pump oxytocin, the comforting compliment, the admiring gaze. Your authenticity quietly erodes beneath the biochemical tide, and you scarcely notice. Meanwhile, cognitive biases steer you like an invisible helmsman. The halo effect blankets you in a pervasive glow. Someone who finds you attractive will but often unconsciously attribute positive traits to you in areas unrelated to appearance. Intelligence, kindness, competence all are granted as if by magic. You bask in this glow, but at what cost? You may begin to lean on it, letting unearned reputation shield you from self-scrutiny, from the discomfort of personal growth. When criticism comes, it strikes deeper than mere words. It collides with the fragile edifice of reputation you've built on borrowed light. Confirmation bias then seals the deal. You remember every time someone praised your wit or flair, but dismissed the times they saw through your act, labeled your charms as hollow, or simply looked away. Over time, you curate a memory palace of polite amnesia, reinforcing the myth of your infinite allure. You believe the story you tell yourself, that you are naturally magnetic, deserving of every glance. But that story drifts further from the raw truth of your being as layers of selective memory accumulate like sediment in a riverbed. Cultural conditioning pours gasoline on this psychological tinder. From infancy you absorbed images of the perfect body, the charismatic leader, the seductive smile. Advertisements, movies, even fairy tales scripted your sense of attractiveness, equating it with social power and emotional fulfillment. When you learned that Cinderella captured the prince's heart with a glass slipper, you absorbed an implicit message that your worth and your destiny hinge on a particular form of beauty. Every fairy tale ending stamped a blueprint onto your unconscious, making it seem inevitable that those who shine will prosper, and those who remain unseen will perish. These cultural codes become your unseen jailers. You perform the dance of attractiveness, not merely for yourself, but to fulfill a script written by marketers and storytellers, a script that says, "Be desirable, and you shall be rewarded." You chase the applause of passive audiences, forgetting that genuine connection asks for vulnerability, not performance. The moment you slip, hesitate, or fail to meet the cultural standard, the applause fades. You feel exposed, less than whole, as if the world had decided you were no longer worthy of oxygen. And so you labor to maintain the act, tightening the screws on the persona that commands approval. This relentless performance breeds anxiety. Social situations become auditions, each smile graded, each laugh weighed. You sense every micro-expression, analyzing whether you still measure up. Your heart pounds in anticipation of judgment. Your stomach knots at the thought of being found insufficient. What began as a confident stride becomes a tightrope walk, every step watched by imagined critics. The same magnetism that once felt liberating morphs into a gilded cage, beautiful to behold, but imprisoning to inhabit. In relationships, too, these unseen forces exert their pull. You gravitate toward partners who reinforce your persona, who sing along to your carefully composed song. Subconsciously, you avoid those who might challenge your act, who could ask the hard questions that unsettle your certainty. Attraction becomes a selective filter. You choose only mirrors of your projected self, and in doing so, foreclose the possibility of true intimacy. You know what rapper feels like when two people meet without pretense, and so you build walls to keep it at bay. At work, you lean on your aura of competence. Colleagues defer to your confidence, and you accept the credit. You avoid tasks that risk tarnishing your image, steering away from challenges that might expose your vulnerabilities. In negotiations, you play the role of the charismatic visionary, never admitting doubt. Others follow, but secretly they wonder whether this vision has substance. You may sail ahead for a time, but eventually the hull of your persona springs leaks, projects fail, promises falter. And in those moments your attractiveness can feel like a mirage dissolving in sunlight. Perhaps the most insidious consequence is the alienation of self. You wake one morning and realize you no longer know which thoughts, likes, or desires belong to you, and which exist only to sustain your image. You scroll through photos of yourself, critiquing the angles and filters, searching for the version that will garner the most affirmation. You rehearse witty remarks in the shower, preparing to dazzle. You may have forgotten how to encounter yourself honestly without the gaze of another to validate you. This alienation breeds a quiet desperation. You might try to fill the emptiness with more of what once worked: a bolder outfit, a sharper joke, a grander gesture. Yet nothing satiates, because the hunger is not for applause but for authenticity. And authenticity, you've discovered, demands you risk rejection, risk being seen as you are. But you have become so accustomed to the safety of the spotlight, the safe mask, that the darkness beyond the glare feels terrifying. You clutch your persona as if it were the only lifeline, even as it drowns you slowly in its performative currents. So the tragedy unfolds. The very force that draws others in, your attractiveness, becomes the chain that binds you. It shapes your brain chemistry, warps your memories, feeds on cultural scripts, and erects barriers between you and genuine connection. It offers the illusion of power, even as it undermines your freedom. And all the while you may never suspect that your brightest glow hides your deepest shadows. Yet the urgency of escape grows with each passing day. The longer you dance for an audience of phantoms, ghosts, of expectation and projection, the further you drift from your true center. You begin to feel disconnected not only from others but from yourself, a marionette performing in a puppet show you no longer wrote. The unseen consequences demand recognition, for until you confront them, every measure you take to enhance your attractiveness will only deepen the trap. And so you stand at the crossroads again. But this time the path behind you twists back into the mirrors and the shadows they cast, and it grows ever darker the further you look. The path ahead beckons faintly, lit by a spark of possibility, that you might learn to see these chains, to feel the weight of them, and to summon the courage to break free. In that moment, you prepare for a rebellion, a journey not to amplify your allure, but to reclaim your authentic self. The next stage awaits, a radical shift in perspective that dares to dismantle every assumption you've held about charm, attraction, and power. As you inhale the charged air of this revelation, you sense that what comes next could overturn the very foundations of your being.
You close your eyes and feel the weight of those invisible chains rattling at your wrists. you have seen how the machinery of your attractiveness has molded you dopamine loops, archetypal echoes, cultural scripts, and recognized the gilded cage you've built around your own spirit. Now, the question pulses in your veins. How do you tear down the walls that once made you feel so safe, yet now imprison you? This is your rebellion, the act of radical self-liberation that begins with one fierce decision: to refuse the role you've been cast in. First, you must unmask the performance. For too long, you have stepped onto the stage of social life in full costume, calibrated to elicit approval. You smile at the cue, speak at the cue, laugh exactly when expected. Now, imagine striding into that same cafe as before, but this time, instead of adjusting your posture for maximum charm, you allow yourself to slump, to be awkward, even to be silent. You resist the urge to lace your words with wit or polish your appearance for the barista's admiring glance. At first, you feel exposed. Your heartbeat thunders, yet with each awkward syllable you utter, you reclaim a fragment of your own. Voice the raw, unfiltered tone that once belonged to you alone. This intentional oddity is counterintuitive. You expect rejection, but instead you find something startling: authentic connection. When you stumble over a thought rather than deliver it smoothly, eyes around you soften. Someone leans in. Curious, they see not a polished mask, but a fellow human fumbling through the same existential terrain. This unguarded moment cracks the ice of performance and lets warmth seep through. By breaking the choreography of your own persona, you spark a dance that feels alive and fiercely human. Next, you unlearn the scripts, those fairy tales and advertisements that told you beauty guaranteed happiness. You now treat as cautionary legends. Each morning, before you meet the mirror, you recite a different mantra. I am more than a reflection. You challenge yourself to list 3 qualities you cherish that have nothing to do with appearance: your capacity for empathy, the way your mind lingers on a haunting piece of poetry, your willingness to ask hard questions. As these self-affirmations carve pathways in your mind, you weaken the old scripts that told you your worth was measured in glances and applause. But unmasking and unlearning are only the overture. The heart of the rebellion lies in practicing radical transparency. When you speak, you unveil your thought process in conversation. Instead of hiding behind carefully curated stories, you share the raw edges. I'm nervous about saying this, but you admit when you don't know, when you feel uncertain, when your heart races at the thought of judgment. This bold vulnerability catalyzes intimacy that no magnetic image could ever buy. You invite others to join you in the arena of authenticity, and in doing so, forge bonds that pulse with genuine resonance, rather than the hollow echo of projection. As you grow braver, you start to dismantle the cognitive biases that once served as your jailers. When you catch yourself enjoying the halo effect, a colleague attributing competence to you based solely on your presence, you pause and thank them for the thought. Then pivot to share credit, revealing vulnerabilities or uncertainties. By naming your doubts, you remind both yourself and others that perfection is an illusion. This practice deflates the pedestal they've placed you on, and in deflating it, you deflate the pedestal within your own ego. What remains is not a weakened self, but one more robust, more real, and more capable of genuine mastery. You begin to confront the collective unconscious head-on. In solitude, you meditate on the archetypes that have guided your interactions: the nurturing mother, the trickster, the heroic wanderer, and write letters to them. Dear Anima, you begin. Thank you for your gifts and your wounds. You acknowledge the ways these primordial images shaped your behavior and vow to dialogue with them instead of being their puppet. In this inner council room, you sit at the head of the table, you negotiate new terms, You will honor their power, but they will no longer command your every move. You reclaim the sovereignty of your psyche. History offers you companions on this rebellion. Recall Simone de Beauvoir, who refused the limited roles prescribed to women in her era, writing truth after truth to break the mold of expectation. Recall Socrates, who questioned every assumption of his society, drinking the hemlock rather than live a life unexamined. Recall the Buddhist monks who sat for years in silent caves to disentangle themselves from the ceaseless tapestries of desire. Their examples remind you, liberation is earned in the disquiet of resistance, in the dissolution of self. Yet you do not isolate yourself in this pursuit. You form alliances with those who embrace authenticity over performance. In these circles, there is no applause to be won, only mirrors to reflect each other's courage. You share your stumbles and celebrate raw honesty. You learn that true attractiveness radiates not from flawless charm, but from the authenticity that shines through vulnerability. Still, you must remain vigilant. The world will attempt to lure you back with the siren song of easy validation. A compliment arrives, and your gut shouts, "Feast!" But you remember the rebellion and sip your tea instead. You pause, feeling the echo of your old craving, and smile an honest smile this time, born not of strategy but of gratitude for the awareness you've gained. Gradually, a new presence emerges. You walk into the cafe again, not as the magnetic figure you once were, but as someone entirely you, perhaps a little disheveled. Perhaps voice quavering, but utterly alive. People notice you, not because you conform to their archetypes, but because you have become a unique imprint on the world. They are drawn to your courage, your raw edges, your unvarnished truth. You have traded borrowed charm for the force of your singular soul. In reclaiming authenticity, you also reclaim the power behind your attractiveness, the power to create meaning rather than chase it. No longer are you driven by the compulsion to elicit pleasure or admiration. Instead, you are guided by the impulse to be real, to act in alignment with your deepest values. Your magnetism becomes a byproduct, not a goal. It is the aura of integrity, the resonance of a self who has reclaimed the reins. Still, this rebellion is not an endpoint, but an ongoing practice. Each day presents fresh temptations to revert to old patterns. Every social interaction, every glance in the mirror, offers a crossroads. Will you don the mask once more, or will you stand barefaced and unabashed? With each choice, you sharpen your resolve and expand the territory of your authentic self. As the chains of expectation clatter to the floor behind you, you feel a newfound lightness. The world no longer feels like a stage where you must perform, but like a canvas where you may paint in bold, untested strokes. And so you move forward, armed with the clarity that true liberation and true attractiveness springs from the courage to be seen as you are. Ahead lies the final revelation, the ultimate truth that crowns this rebellion and illuminates everything you have learned. It is a truth so profound, it will reshape not only how you see yourself, but how you perceive every soul you encounter. The journey has been perilous, but the destination beckons, and its promise shines brighter than any borrowed spotlight.
You stand at the edge of a vast canyon, its walls etched with the patterns of every story you have ever told yourself, stories of who you were supposed to be, who you thought you were, and who you feared you might become. Behind you, the jagged silhouettes of masks and personas lie shattered, the chains of validation now silent on the cavern floor. Before you stretches a void vibrant with possibility, illuminated by a single beam of moonlight that seems to beckon you forward. In that luminous haze, you sense the final truth, waiting to be spoken, an epiphany so elemental, it dissolves every pretense you have ever worn. Feel your breath deepen as you heed its call. The truth is this: your the force you once believed was meant to conquer the world was never an end in itself. It was a compass, pointing you toward the one terrain that truly matters, the uncharted continent of your authentic self. Every dopamine rush, every projection of desire, every cultural echo has been a signpost, urging you to look inward. Attraction, in its purest form, is a reflection of the soul's hunger for connection, not the connection of admiration, but the connection of shared being. Close your eyes and imagine that beam of moonlight as a spear of insight piercing straight through your chest. It ignites a flame that burns away the last vestiges of vanity and fear. You realize that what others found magnetic was not your polished facade, but your latent capacity for transformation, the courageous battle between your light and shadows. That struggle, vivid and unguarded, radiates a gravitas that no crafted smile could match. Your true allure is the glow of self, the shimmer of someone who has looked into their own abyss and returned with a story worth telling. In this moment, time seems too slow. You recall every encounter that once felt like approval, now seen as echoes of a dance you were learning to master. You remember the pang of jealousy when another outshone you, now understood as the mirror of your own unclaimed potential. You revisit the heartbreaks, the triumphs, the mundane conversations that once swirled in your mind like restless spirits, and you see them all as steps on the pilgrimage toward this luminous precipice. Each was necessary, each was a teacher. A soft wind stirs, carrying the scent of mountain pines and distant storms. It whispers an invitation to let go not only of old personas, but of the very desire to be seen as you were. It asks you to embrace the paradox that your worth is not measured by any or internal, but by the authenticity of your presence. To be truly attractive, you must cease striving to attract. Instead, you must surrender to the vastness of who you are, a being at once infinite in possibility and bound by the humble miracle of this fleeting moment. Feel the earth beneath your feet as you step forward into the moonlit gorge. With each step, the beam of light shifts, illuminating new facets of the canyon's beauty-hidden alcoves, crystalline waterfalls, stone carvings so precise they seem alive. These wonders were always there, carved by time and unseen until now. So to your gifts: empathy honed by vulnerability, wisdom distilled from suffering, creativity born of chaos. They emerge in the clarity of self-acceptance, uncolored by the thirst for praise. You reach the heart of the canyon, where the light pools like liquid silver in a natural basin. Kneel and lean forward to touch its surface. In the ripple that dances beneath your fingertips, you see not your reflection, but the interwoven tapestry of all beings. Every soul touches the next. Every yearning echoes in another's heart. The basin does not mirror one face, but many faces of strangers you have loved. Faces of ancestors long gone, faces of the children you once were, and those you might become. The basin shows you the ultimate truth. Your attractiveness is not yours alone. It is a chord in the grand symphony of existence. As you withdraw your hand, the basin's waters settle. You rise and feel, for the first time, what it means to be free. Not the freedom to be admired, but the freedom to be real. You are liberated from the script of performance, from the tyranny of expectations, from the illusions that once held you captive. You carry no mask, no measure, no need for external validation, only the vibrant pulse of your living essence. Beyond the canyon's rim lies an uncharted plain, shimmering with dawn's first light. You sense that the way forward is not a path to be mapped, but an openness to be lived. You will create your own landmark acts of kindness, moments of courage, sparks of creativity that arise from the ever-renewing well of your authentic self. Each act will be a beacon, not to draw eyes for the sake of admiration, but to illuminate a shared journey of becoming. In that first hush of dawn, you smile, not a practiced curve of lips, but a genuine upturn born from deep within. It is a smile that carries the weight of shadows met and the grace of light reclaimed. It is a smile that, without effort or artifice, ripples across the canyon walls and summons a chorus of awakening voices. For in embracing the final truth, you have tapped into the primal source of attraction, the resonance of a soul at peace with itself. You take a final breath of the canyon air and step out into the open plain, your heart a clear drumbeat echoing with purpose. Behind you, the moonbeam lingers, a silent promise that you may return to this place of revelation whenever you lose your way. Ahead of you, the morning glows, and with it the possibility of each new encounter. No more shadows to evade, no more masks to denote only the boundless field of your genuine presence. And so you journey onward, an embodiment of the ultimate realization, that true attractiveness is the living expression of authenticity, the electric current of a self who has dared to confront every hidden truth. In this revelation, every struggle finds its meaning, every relationship its depth, every moment its sacrament. You are, in the purest sense, attractive not because others gaze upon you, but because you gaze upon yourself unflinchingly and say, "Here I am."